Sure, they see you. Good morning. I'm Senator Isidore Hall, and I proudly represent Los Angeles County's South Bay communities of the 35th Senate District in the California State Senate. I am also proud to stand here today with a diverse group of Californians to announce the introduction of Senate Bill 1063, the California Wage Equality Act of 2016. Last year, I was proud to make history when I co-authored SB 358 with Senator Jackson to ensure that men and women are paid the same wage for the same day's work. While SB 358 was an important step, wage inequality still persists in our state and in our nation. A 2013 study by the American Association of University Women revealed that Asian American women make only 90 cents to the dollar, African American women make only 64 cents to the dollar, and Hispanic or Latina women make just 54 cents to the dollar of every Caucasian man. California's wage gap isn't limited to gender, as African American men earn just 75% of the average salary of their white coworker. More must be done to determine or to eliminate racial and ethnic wage inequality in the workplace, which is obviously why I'm proud to stand with great organizations such as the California National Organization of Women, the Greater Sacramento Urban League, the American Association of University Women, the Sacramento branch of the NAACP, and of course, Unite Here, and many others who are actually supporting SB 1063. Now, I often speak about my family's origin in California and my mother's decision to flee the segregated South to raise her family here in California. And I often speak about how Mom had to maintain 3 part-time jobs to keep her 6 children fed, her 6 children clothed and housed in a 2-bedroom, 800-square-foot home in Compton. Maintaining 3 part-time jobs, my friend, and raising a family is extremely difficult to do on a good day. It is even more difficult to do when those jobs pay you less than your white coworkers. This was a sad reality for my mother and for coworkers throughout California that have been victims of wage discrimination because of the color or the hue of their skin. It is an economic injustice. It is discriminatory, and it's just outright wrong. And today we stand before you to say no more. Here's the fact. There were and still are many people like my mother. They rely on 2 or 3 part-time jobs just to pay the bills, just to make ends meet, and to buy diapers and milk for their children. The fact is, as California continues to grow and diversify, large segments of our state's minority population are facing devastating economic inequality because of wage discrimination. The fact is, no employee should be denied an equal wage for an equal day of work. The fact is, California needs SB 1063, and SB 1063 builds upon the important steps California has taken to address wage inequality and will create the strongest wage inequality law in the nation. SB 1063 will prohibit employers from paying employees a wage less than that rate paid to employees of a different race or ethnicity for substantially similar work. SB 1063 will prohibit employers, SB 1063 builds upon the important steps California has already taken to address this very issue. So the time to act is now. And I encourage my legislative colleagues and I encourage the governor to join me in supporting SB 1063. I want to also thank my staff for doing an extraordinary job in researching this issue, and my staff member Tara McGee, who has also worked very hard on this legislation. Again, thank you for the opportunity to present this. And now I'd like to introduce Geraldine Stapleton, the president of California National Organization of Women. Please welcome her. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hall. And Kolika, please come up be with me. This is Kalika Siegel. She's a VP for California Now, and she's also the president of the Sacramento chapter of Now. And first, we want to thank Senator Hall and his staff for introducing SB 1063 to expand the Equal Pay Act to include race and ethnicity. California Now is a membership organization committed to institutionalizing intersectional gender equity. Our work transgresses over social boundaries and walls built to imprint, reinforce, and protect implicit stereotype biases that damage all of us. We are here to make these changes happen by working with progressive intersectional feminists like lawmakers like Senator Hall. Yeah, intersectionality is the theory of how different types of discrimination interact. More precisely, intersectionality is a concept about how an individual can face multiple threats of discrimination when their identities overlap with the minority classes such as race, gender, age, ethnicity, health, and other characteristics. SB 358, the California Fair Pay Act, now law, goes a long way in addressing the substantiative inequities of the original Equal Pay Act's elements and defenses. However, these improvements must be accompanied by a broadening of claimants to include all forms of indigenous wage discrimination. Such broadening is necessary so that all women and men, for that matter, are recognized as having a right to equal pay for equal work. As it stands currently, the California Pay Act fails to include the largest factor for inequity, that of race, effectively limiting a redress for compensation differentials to select group of women workers. I'm going to turn it over now to Kalika.
As California Now, we support the broadening of SB 358. As a progressive, intersectional feminist organization, we advocate for solutions that recognize that individuals face multiple intersecting discriminations or privileges based on race, sex, gender, sexuality, disability, and other statuses. Each and every one of us should be working to eliminate individual and institutional privilege, discrimination, and bias. And that is why we stand here today in support of Senator Isidore Hall and SB 1063, which adds race and ethnicity to the Equal Pay Act. We stand in support because this bill begins the process of full inclusion and with the recognition that everyone has a right to equal pay for equal work.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we'd like to introduce Cassandra Jennings from the Greater Sacramento Urban League.
Thank you and good morning. Thank you, Senator Isidore Hall, for introducing Senate Bill 1063 to address the racial and ethnic wage gap that still exists in California despite how far we've come. This is an issue for many of the participants that we serve at the Greater Sacramento Urban League every day. We serve this community for almost 50 years, and we provide underserved youth and adults and African Americans with education, job, training, and placement opportunities for them to achieve economic self-reliance. The fact that African American men make approximately 75% of its Caucasian counterparts is unacceptable. This puts many of our participants at a huge disadvantage when entering the workplace and sustaining work to take care of their families. This is an individual issue. As you've heard, this is also a family issue. This is a community issue. This is a California issue. And the fact that 65-year-old California Equal Pay Act failed to include one of the largest factors for wage inequity, race and equity, is alarming. We can do better than that. California can do better. Let's support SB 1063 so that we can begin to address the wage gap based on race and ethnicity and build stronger communities. Thank you, Senator, for introducing this bill.
Thank you.
I would now like to introduce Shannon Smith Crawley with the American Association of the University of Women.
Thank you for being here.
I echo our thanks for Senator Hall's introduction of this bill. The American Association of University Women has always stood for wage equality. The 13,000 California members supported last year's Senate Bill 358, which updated our equal pay laws to address disparities between men and women. We were pleased to be witnesses to Governor Brown's signing of that bill, and we already see its positive effects. We hear of employers excuse me, reassessing their entire salary structure to make sure they are being paid fairly. And in fact, our star witness with the bill last year, Aileen Rizzo of Fresno, who's suing her employer, the County of Fresno, just got her salary adjusted because they went back because of the Jackson bill and assessed everybody's salary structure. It's critical for employers now to take a step back and to reassess what they're paying. A lot of this is they may not be intending to discriminate. They're just using a system that was set up decades ago, and they're perpetuating that discrimination. So the effect is discriminatory regardless of the intent. So while employers are assessing whether men and women are paid fairly, it gives them the opportunity to include other factors such as race and ethnicity. SB 1063 will bring that consideration front and center so that there is no excuse to have wage disparities for any other reason than a legitimate business reason, such as differences in education, experience, training, or merit. We all win when employees are paid fairly. California's talent pool is a precious resource that must be respected in order for California to continue to prosper. Just yesterday, I heard a presentation by the Greater Sacramento organization that had new data they found that said California is the most profitable state for business in the entire country, over New York and over Texas, which has weaker regulations and lower taxes. The reason is our people. So we need to continue to make the investment in having fairly paid people that are willing to stay in California and continue to work with these amazing companies that have come here because of us. So SB 1063 will be the catalyst to make the investment in our people, and AUW is pleased to be a supporter. And I would like to now introduce Stephen Webb of the Sacramento branch of the NAACP.
Thank you very much, Senator Isidore Hall, for this wonderful bill that is here today. We continue to strive for equality. We continue to strive for betterment. This particular bill will assist in doing so. The Sacramento branch is 100 years old as of this year, but that did not come without the strife and the other things that would go on with it. We continue to also want to make sure that the wages that are there are fair and that they're just. We cannot continue to have the lower wages that we've had. We've continued to be in this fight for a long time, and thanks to Senator Hall and Senate Bill 1063, we're able to do these things. We will continue to be on the front line of the fight, and we'll continue to make sure that justice will be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and I want to thank again our partners in this fight. That will conclude our press conference. If there are any questions, we'd like to answer your questions.
What kind of path forward do you see for this bill in terms of who might support? What kind of opposition you're expecting to see?
Well, I don't know that there will be much opposition. The Hannah-Beth Jackson bill last year, which is somewhat a mirrored bill, received bipartisan support and all industry support from all four corners of California, whether it's nonprofit organizations, to the Chamber of Commerce, to labor. It received bipartisan and widespread support from all organizations. It's a crime to think that anyone could work on a job and be paid less just because of your race and or your gender. And I think that this is un-Californian, and I can't see anyone basically justifying an action for such wage inequality as this. Yes.
I want to apologize for my cell phone going off. That was rude. But I wanted to ask, there's some research that suggests underlying this issue of racial discrimination in wage, the wage gap issue, is the lack of availability of quality education for members of these different races. Now, have you considered that at all in constructing this legislation?
Well, if you have a job, you should be paid the same wage as anyone else on the job. If you have the job and someone else is being paid a little higher for the same job, I don't think training has anything to do with it. If you're hired to do a job and someone else is working the same job making more, you wouldn't have been hired had you not been qualified. There's other things that we're doing right now to address the educational challenges, particularly in lower socioeconomic communities, that basically addressed career tech, voc tech education to give an uptick in those communities where college is, one, not affordable, or one is perhaps not desirous of going to college. But in this bill, this just basically says that if you're working on the job and someone is working on that same job with the same title, doing the same work, then they should be entitled to the same pay.
And that kind of leads into my next question, which is sort of, if you could describe more what you mean by substantially similar work. Seems like it could be a potentially litigious.
If you are an administrative assistant and someone else is an administrative assistant with a different hue of skin, they should be paid the same amount of work, the same wage. Any other questions?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.